as I get closer to where he went off the road, I see a big black shape in the middle of the road walking. So I have to slam on my brakes and try to swerve myself because this thing is walking in the center of the road. Because I don't see a head and I don't see arms. I just see a really big, tall person, like big, thick legs and a big, thick torso. And they're moving very funny.
But to be honest, I wish I had have seen some of her vulnerability. I wish I'd have seen her in that space so that I would have language.
And he says, no. That's not why you're angry. That's why you're mad. Mad is on the surface. Mad is a surface emotion. You're angry. And anger is deep. It cuts to your soul. You are an angry young man. And I couldn't answer. I then had come to realize over the next course of a few hours, I'm musing to myself, and I realize I've been a victim my whole life. That's why I'm so angry. And over the course of the next 19 months, this man changed my life. He helped me to realize about processing emotion and how to forgive myself and forgive others. And that's where the metamorphosis really began for me. And I learned I'm a survivor, right? I know how to survive.
I was understood for the first time in my entire life. And when I read those things and I learned, quote unquote, those things about myself that I had known forever, but never really had the semantics for, I couldn't unlearn them. Like I heard this quote years ago and it resonated with me so much. And it's like, you can choose to look the other way, but you can never again say you didn't know.
Welcome to another episode of the Verbal Echo podcast. Today I have Lynn K. Russell. Lynn studied religions and spirituality for most of her life in the search for truth. That quest culminated with the research she did for Dr. Jeffrey Long's book, Evidence of the Afterlife. In the process, she researched 2,500 cases. Lynn's research brings you profound spiritual knowledge and answers to humans' age-old question, what is this all about? In response to that knowledge, she has written Beyond NDEs, the next step in near-death experience research. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you here. We're going to have a fun conversation. So what I think the first question that listeners might be interested in is, what is your explanation for an NDE or a near-death experience?
Okay. My explanation for a near-death experience is that someone would actually be pronounced dead, and they're working on the body to try, if it's an operation, that the people are working on the body and trying to resuscitate the person, and that the organs in the heart have stopped. So that to me is death. And when the person has an experience during that time, when their brain is not working, they should actually not have any experience. They come back with a story about, their near-death experience. So to me, that's a near-death experience. There are out-of-body experiences that happen during operations, and people will hover above the operation and watch what's going on, but they're not being resuscitated. So the body didn't die. They're just out of the body and watching. So that's the difference.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've heard of that many times. I think I listened to another podcast where a doctor was interviewed about NDEs, and he had like a lot of research into the whole out-of-body experience that some of his patients came back witnessing and accounting for. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
So how long have you been researching this topic?
Well, about 2007. So about 13 years.
Yeah, that's a long time. And then so when you started research, so I guess the big question is, how did you get into this research that you started in it? I think it was Jeffrey Long's book, right?
Yeah. NDERF, which stands for Near Death Experience Research Foundation. So that's the place I did my research for. And what the story is that when I retired, first of all, I was always a very spiritual person. I was raised in an atheist home, but I was a very spiritual person myself. And so and as I've said, I already mentioned before, or you mentioned, that I researched a great deal of our spirituality and religions and so on. Anyway, so I was already very much into that frame of mind. And when I retired, I decided that I was going to write a book. And the book I wanted to write had a woman who was OBEing. And I had her doing things that I didn't even know were possible. So I thought I would look up an OBE site and find out if the things I had my lady doing could actually happen. And I round up on NDERF because they have a segment of OBEs there. I never did get the answer I want, but NDEs fascinated me. And so I wound up on the chat line. And then from there, I went, Dr. Long, I was on the chat line at Dr. Long, asked for a volunteer. And I just retired. I had all kinds of time. So I offered. And so that's how I got into it. But once I started, I was interested in how NDEs happen. But once I got, what happened when you die and all that kind of stuff. But after a few hundred, I pretty much had that down pat. But I began to see information beyond that of what was being brought back, the spiritual information. And that's what my work is mostly about.
And so you started doing this research and found yourself in the depths of over 2,500 cases.
Yes.
And so you started to notice synchronicities or consistencies with the data you were collecting.
Yes, absolutely. And information about the questions that people ask for centuries that we've been asking about, what's this all about? And so I got some answers to that.
Oh, fascinating. I bet that was really
That's in my
rewarding. Book. Yeah,
it was very rewarding. As a matter of fact, I had no intentions of writing about this when I first started doing the research, but I was so fascinated, I just had to share it.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting when people retire, they find themselves with free time, but you still have that work ethic. Like you still feel like you want to work and give something back, but it's also kind of cool because you're at that point in your life where you do feel like you have the time and the space to give back to humanity. And so I just think that's really cool that, and I hope to someday be able to be in that space where I am retired and I can start giving back. Not yet, but yeah,
I do.
Yeah, I have a few years. But it's interesting when you think about that because the seeds are already planting in my mind. Like, okay, this is kind of something I'd like to do, maybe in retirement.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super, super good. And then you wrote a children's book also.
Yes, I love my children's book. It's one of my favorites. It's about a boy named Cam, and Cam is 13, and he's lives in subsidized housing, and he's quite poor, and with a single mom and his sister, and he is getting a bad attitude about life, and getting mixed up with the wrong crowd, and he's also bullied quite a bit at school. excuse me. So the story is that during a homework assignment, he finds himself um, in this weird world that's all cartoon creatures, and it's called Warple. This dimension that he goes to is called Warple, and so he meets these wonderful, warm, fuzzy creatures that teach him life lessons, and so he learns about the oneness from Jansia, I think her name is, and then he learns about Wixer teaches him that. Anger comes back at you, and so when you can get angry, but it's going to come back at you sometime. And he also learns about that compassion and caring and kindness are strengths and are things that are contagious, and so to keep it going. And then the last lesson is that love is the most important power that there is in the universe. So that's a synopsis of the book.
That's so true. And it's nice that you could give that back to youth, because I think our youth today could really hear that. Such great messages, especially about love and kindness. And yeah. So, and it sounds like
all of it is done in adventure and getting into mischief and things that he shouldn't do, dangers and that kind of thing. So it's got a good story along with it.
Yeah, that's a great way for kids to learn too. I have 3 kids of my own, and they're all grown up now, but yeah, it seems like they always had more learning moments, like when they were right in the middle of doing something totally different, and then just a learning opportunity came up, or sometimes it was in books. So I think that's really really nice that you did that, and I'm sure it was fun too. So of your NDE stories, do you have anyone that was more substantial or unique that you could share?
Yes, there's 2 that stick out. Well, there's quite a few that stick out, to be honest, but and for different reasons. But the first 2 that I want to mention is a man called Mellon Thomas Benedict, and Mellon Thomas is dead. He's gone now, but he was he had cancer. He died of cancer. And he had a horrible attitude towards life. He thought that people were horrible. He did not like people at all. He thought that they were the scourge of the earth. And so that was the first message. And so he really had a very negative attitude about being here in the world. And so he's dying of cancer, and he's going up into, or wherever direction. He's traveling because he's died. And he says, just a minute, stop. And everything stops, which is a very important message, because one of the things that I tell over and over and over again is that we have control of our own experiences, and we create our death experience, and we also create our life experiences. So anyway, so this sort of illustrates that a bit. So he says stop, and then he says, I want to think about this. And then he says, take me to the very beginning of time, at the very beginning of the universe. And so he watches our universe being created and all the lessons that he gains. And that's fascinating. It's really quite interesting. And then when he's on his way back, and he's cured, by the way, of cancer, and so he comes back, but on his way, he says to his guides, so there are no evil souls anywhere? And the guides say, there are no evil souls anywhere throughout universe. And it is our thoughts and our concepts, the way we treat attitudes, that dictate our lives.
That's a really good message. Very powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really interesting story.
And then
yeah.
the other experience I'll mention is a woman called Hafur, Hafur. And if you want to look her up, by the way, Mellon Thomas Benedict is also online. So just Google his name and you'll find him. And you can Google Hafur too. It's Hafur and then NDE. And what's fascinating about her is she was an ordinary housewife. She wasn't into spirituality or anything. She was just doing her thing as far as being a housewife. And she had a very deep and profound experience that was so amazing. And she came back and she lists all the different things that she learned during her experience. And it really is very insightful and deep. So I really do suggest people watch that.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
Welcome.
So I noticed on your website you have several tabs at the top that you can check out. And at the end, you can mention how to find you. But I noticed that you have a lot of book recommendations on religion and philosophy.
Yeah.
If someone was interested in learning more about religion and philosophy or history, or enlightened wisdom, what would be your top 3 book recommendations to start with that might be approachable?
Okay. Actually, my book. Not because it's mine, but because it's filled with all kinds of deeper information and the questions that people ask and information about that. So that's why I do recommend Beyond NDEs. The other book would be Biocentrism, and that's written by a doctor. He's a research doctor, and it's based on science, and it's very fascinating and very well written. And then the last book is my favorite, and it's a little bit, but they take you through it from the beginning, like where you don't know a lot, and they gradually build it up to the point where, and that is called Already Home. And Already Home is, you can get it on Hay House. That's a Hay House classic, so they'll have it.
Yeah, Hay House Publishing. They have so many really good books and links, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that. This question's kind of connected with religion and philosophy and science. How do you think these have been connected in modern times, about 30 years ago versus now? And kind of what do you see as changing? Do you feel like there's any new revelations that are coming out in cosmic connection? Like with the whole disclosure of UAPs that are going on right now and people coming forward and speaking about their cosmic interactions, raising of consciousness. Do you think that there's any new revelations that are coming out versus like 30 years ago when people were just kind of discounting it and saying, oh, that's just a bunch of nonsense? And do you see that changing?
So, yeah, sure. People are much more open now, and that's great. I love it. And so they're more open to hearing other ways of thinking. And I think you've heard this, but I really think that we're heading for a new age. But I know that right now things look pretty awful. But I think we're heading for a new age because the consciousness is being raised. I see the difference. I'm 86, so I've watched the things change from, the 1940s until now. And I can see the change in attitude and the way, like in the olden days, if an animal was stuck, it was stuck. Too bad. People would have just walked by and said, gee, look at that. Or they were quite cruel. Some people were quite cruel with animals. And animals didn't have souls. They didn't think about animals having souls. They were things. And so that attitude has changed vastly. The other attitude that's changed is that people are more respectful of each other in some ways. I know that the youth aren't. There's the young people, but I think that's testosterone overflowing, and they just don't know how to handle it. But
Some things never change.
that's right. That doesn't. But I think they might, because I'm just reading some Agatha Christie books. I'm always reading. And so I thought I would do a Agatha Christie binge. And the book that I just read had kids that were 15, 16, and she talks about them as if they're little children, and that their interests are just about the same as a small child. And I'm thinking, there's no attitude, there's no trying to break the rules, or, a little bit of mischief, but that's it. And I wonder if that is indicative of the difference in time. I don't know.
It sounds like it. I think definitely, nowadays 15-year-olds can run the world.
Yeah.
And we wonder why there's so many mental health challenges with teenagers, because there's so much stress on them to be something when they should be being a kid and enjoying that time. You only get 18 years to be a kid, and then you're thrust into paying taxes, right? And sometimes before then. But I thank you so much for sharing that, because when you were speaking about like how animals are treated, I think this is something, I love speaking to our elders, because I think there's so much wisdom that you all can share. And I think we lose sight of that sometimes, knowing how far we've come. Especially with treating, like how we used to treat animals. And I remember seeing that when I'm only 55, but I remember seeing that when I was a kid. And now I've seen the change in more compassion, and also the science too. Like, we're learning about how dolphins can communicate, and how dogs can press recorded buttons to communicate with their family. I think it's so cool. I even bought some of the little buttons for my dog. I don't think she's smart enough, but maybe it's my fault for not putting in the time. But it's really, to see them like, and it's not chance, they are communicating, right? And so I think that's so enlightening to see that happening, that not only are these animals capable of this, they've been capable of that, and shame on us for just treating them not like that. But we are where we are, and so we have evolved, and we have become more compassionate, and our consciousness is raising. And I'm sure someone who's in their mid-80s has seen so much.
Yes, I remember the Second World War.
Yes.
I was 7 when it ended.
Right. Oh, the history. And I think our youth, I think it's interesting. I don't know if you watch Netflix sometimes, but there was a rush of World War II movies out earlier this year. And I kind of found myself binging some of them, because it was really good, with just kind of a reminding of the history and everything that we went through. And I think it kind of goes in waves too, but movies are a great way to learn about history too, if you don't have time to read a book, as long as it's factual. And nothing's always as true as actually having lived through it. But we do have such a resource of film evidence, and people are exposing more things all the time. So it's really cool to learn about history that way. And to remind ourselves of how far we have come also.
And before the boomers, there was no classification of teenage. There were no teenagers. You were a child until you were 21, and then you became an adult. That was it. So as a child, you were under your parents, and that's the way kids saw it. and it wasn't until the boomers and the wandering around the world and so forth that they came up with teenagers, but there was no teenage before that.
That's interesting.
I think that my point, I guess, is that it's a mental attitude. Before that, we were under our parents' control, and we knew that, and that was the way it was. You just listened to your parents, and now,
Right. Right. And now, and I don't know if one way is better than the other. I mean, there are 18-year-olds that are becoming CEOs of companies. So clearly, young people are capable of anything they set their mind to. It's just
and they learn
motivation.
So more at school. The school is so much more advanced than they used to be. Like they really did spoon feed, but now they recognize that children can learn way more. I mean, kids in elementary school or middle school are learning about Einstein's things, So
kids, they're learning about quantum physics in elementary school. It's so awesome. I remember at my age, Gen X, and I had to learn everything from a paper encyclopedia, I remember my first term paper that I typed on a computer, and then it was just this awful experience and the computer crashing, and I didn't even know how to print it out. And it's just, so then I pull out my typewriter and retype. Like, oh my gosh. It's just, they don't know how easy they have it now. They can just click a button and research Greece and then write a paper on Greece. But now they have to, now the teachers have to worry about AI. And so now we're creating, no, you can't just tell AI to write you a paper. The teacher's going to know. We've come so far, and yet sometimes it's not so good.
And when I compare before and now, there's good things in both sides, there's bad things too. So, I mean, there were some pretty awful things happening back then, like I say about animals, but also things that were hidden that have now been brought out. So,
oh yeah, and they continue to be they continue. I think when I say disclosure, I think it envelops a lot. Things that have been hidden for so long, and people were scared to speak up. People were scared to talk about their experiences, and now they're feeling a little bit safer, and they're feeling safer through other platforms such as podcasts. They're coming on and they're speaking about things that happened to them in the past and talking about their history and their careers and things that affected them. And power to the people for making that possible. And so I think you're right. Yeah.
And it was only in the 1960s that women were allowed to have a bank account without a man. At 1960s, and to own a home on their own. So, I mean, like, the world has changed.
Yes. I have to ask if you watched The Handmaid's Tale.
Yes, I read it. Yeah.
Yeah. Highly recommend that if you have not seen it. It is shocking and scary, and wow.
Yeah. She's Atwater is quite I love her books. I've read every one of them.
Well, and it was written, wasn't it written in the, I'm probably totally wrong. I think it was written in the 80s or something, Margaret Atwood. So she was thinking so far ahead of her time and calling out some things that have happened in our country now. Just makes you wonder about the collective conscious, how we're tapping into it and getting wisdom when we don't really understand we're getting wisdom. Yeah. Oh, amazing. Well, and you were speaking about elementary school and the education system, and I wanted to ask you this question. So you were diagnosed with a disability when you were younger, and have you seen any changes in the public school system over the handling of disabilities back then versus now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They didn't even know about half the things that we know about today. I was assessed as mentally slow and put in special classes for slow kids. And I was there for 3 years. I was in grade 2 for 3 years. And the only way I got out was because we moved to a school that didn't have an opportunity class. So they just had normal grades. So anyway, but I do have disabilities, and I know that. I'm not hyper, but I'm ADD. My brain, boom, it's gone. The smallest distraction. I have learned to get control of that, of course, but it still happens. I'll be in the middle of talking and I can't remember what I'm talking about because my brain has thought about something else. Bing.
That might be menopause too, and the after effects of menopause.
Not for me.
Well, for me, I'm like, I think I label myself as ADD too. I don't know if I've never been diagnosed, but I'm so easily distracted. But some of it, I think, is all of our technology. I mean, we're thrown at the shiniest new thing in front of us all the time.
Yes,
it's so hard to maintain focus, and so I want to say that that's probably not your fault.
They didn't have any of those understandings. They didn't know about autism or and I'm dyslexic as well, and nobody knew about that. So those were issues that I had that didn't they. Yeah. So the other thing they've done a lot of is allowed way more freedom in the classroom than they used to. I mean, we were rigid little soldiers doing exactly. And I mean, you wouldn't dare to speak out or, do anything that you weren't supposed to. But now that's quite a bit different. Like my daughter's a teacher, and they have 4 kids sitting together at a table, and they are welcome to talk out, and they can get up when they're finished doing whatever they're doing and go and find an activity corner to work on. So, I mean, that's wonderful, compared.
Yeah. I remember some pretty toxic things when I was in elementary school and middle school. I remember kids' hands being slapped and beat. It's just like, wow, we have come a long ways.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say what a terrible label to put on a child, mentally slow. That's just awful. And yes, we have come so far with that in our school system. And kudos to you for rising above that and saying, no. I am much more than this, and I can learn to cope. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we shortchange ourselves. Actually, I don't think. I know we do. We don't recognize how marvelous we really are. And we are so much better and more than we ever give ourselves credit for being. We're magnificent. We can do anything. And then we keep hearing that. Anything that you can conceive or think about, you can do. And it's true. It absolutely is true. But we don't realize this. So I just read the first the person with the Down syndrome becoming a lawyer. And I thought, good for her. See, that's the kind of thing. She challenged that aspect of herself, So
right.
Yeah.
And 60 years ago, she would have been put in a home and locked away and subjected to terrible treatment. Yeah. So such wisdom. Oh, yes. Thank you so much for sharing that.
I just have one more piece of information on that diagnosis. When I became an adult, I didn't know how to make decisions because somebody always stepped in and made my decisions for me. And so at 31, when I was assessed as well above average, then I left my abusive husband, but I didn't know how to make decisions for myself and the children and what to do. And I really miss that. I miss that throughout my whole time, not having somebody else I could turn to or bounce things off. But the other myth, the other learning that I learned is that responsibility and freedom are exactly the same thing. They're not too different. It's not freedom over here and responsibility. They are the same thing. They're two sides of a coin. And we can't separate them. You cannot have freedom without being responsible.
I love that. Thank you. Yeah. So, since you're an author, do you have any advice for new authors on the publishing process?
Yes, number one, if you're serious, if you're writing it for yourself or you really don't care about where it goes from here, then that's fine. But if you're not, then I very strongly recommend taking life writing lessons. And, there's like community college or or even online courses, but take some courses on how to write. The other thing I suggest is to get it edited, because most people pass that one. It doesn't need it, but it really does. It really does. And that's the bad thing about self-publishing, is that anything goes. And so we've got really bad writers, really bad. And we've got, they never take any courses. They just write what they think. And it doesn't work that way. So
and then enter AI written books, which I hope that trend is dying because it's awful. I'm a member of Medium. I don't know if you know about Medium. It's a publishing company, and you can start your own blog on there, but they have a strong 100% no tolerance policy for AI. You can write about AI and talk about how you can use AI, but you can't write an article using AI. And it's like one of the last stalwarts of true, authentic writing that comes from your soul. And I love it. Yes, you're so right. Don't overlook the editing. Learn how to write, or at least read a really good book on grammar.
But just the techniques, because there's different techniques to writing, like how to say things that are more effective, or that this should go over here and not over here, that kind of thing. The other suggestion I have for writers is to join a writers group, or have other people around that you can bounce things off.
That's a really good idea and point. And you can find these groups everywhere. And also, I just want to point back to Medium. It's just MEDIUM. And you can join as a free member, and there are a zillion articles on how to write. And they're clearly not written with AI. They're written by real people, and you can join their blog or their newsletter, and you can get updates on the writing process and tips and tricks and resources and courses, free courses or whatever. And the authors I've found on Medium are just exceptional.
Oh, well, that's good. Yeah, that's
good resource. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of your wisdom. Where can people find you and tell us about your new book?
Okay, my website has a link that you can connect with me there. So that's fine. And I do respond. And so if anybody wants to contact me, it's lynnKrussell.com. It's super easy. And if you just Google my name, Lynn K. Russell, you'll find me. I'm on Facebook and I'm on LinkedIn, and I have a YouTube channel as well.
A busy octogenarian lady who knows all the tech. I love it. And the name of your book is the new book?
It's Beyond NDEs, the next step in near-death experience research.
Beyond NDE, Beyond NDEs, the next step in near-death experience research.
Yes.
And then your children's book is called Warple, Worpple.
Yes, that's right.
That one's on Amazon also.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for Lynn, for sharing your time with us, and I really appreciate your wisdom. It's been really enlightening.
Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed chatting with you.
Thank you, Lynn. Hey, thanks for listening to another great episode. Be sure and like, share, or follow this podcast by leaving a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. If you have an experience you'd like to share, be sure and reach out to verbalecho@gmail.com. If you know someone who'd like to tell their story, please send them my way. I want to talk to them. No guardrails. Have a great week, friends. See you in the next episode.